I hate talking about NASCAR TV ratings. It doesn't matter if they're up or down. There's always a caveat. There's always more to them that meets the eye. You can never take TV ratings at face value, but even still in 2021, they're the #1 metric we have for gauging the size of TV audiences, and I guess we have no choice but to at least address them when they're the elephant in the room. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Don't worry, we're not just talking about TV ratings today. We do have a couple Adam Stern tweets, some Stern bombs to react to. I'm not gonna dwell on TV ratings too much. If you follow me on Twitter, that seems like all my feed has been this morning. Some of that is my fault for stepping onto that landmine, but I do wanna share some data with you guys that was first reported by Adam Stern, and then I also wanna share some additional behind the scenes data and data I did my own research on to provide the proper context around these TV ratings numbers I'm about to share with you. Out of the Groove is sponsored by Fram. Let's start with Adam Stern's tweet about Phoenix's NASCAR Cup Series TV ratings. Here's what he said. Fox earned a 2.3 rating and 3.857 million viewers for Sunday's Instacart 500, lower than Spring Phoenix last year, 4.5 million, but that was the 4th race and not on Selection Sunday. Last year's 5th race wasn't run until May. So this last weekend's race at Phoenix, as Stern mentions there, does not have anything to directly compare it to because last year's Phoenix was a different week, and of course the 5th race last year was that Darlington race, the first race back that got crazy TV numbers. Nothing to really compare it to, but yes, 3.8 million viewers roughly compared to 4.5 million viewers for a race just on a slightly different week last year. Easy to say that it's a little bit down from last year to this year, but not that number at 3.857 million isn't a terrible number. It's certainly not great. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's just But again, that's just taking the number at face value, and I really hate doing that because there's so much more to these TV ratings than meet the eye. First, there's all the extenuating qualifying circumstances that we have to address. We are still in what I would consider pandemic times. Things, while are rapidly seeming to be returning to normal, they are not quite normal yet, and I think viewing habits have likely changed, maybe not permanently, but dramatically for a considerable amount of time. So there's that, of course. We all know that in 2020, major sports ratings across the board were way down. The World Series was the least watched World Series ever recorded, according to Nielsen TV ratings. The Stanley Cup Final saw a 60% decrease year to year in TV viewership. The NBA Finals at Disney World, featuring the LA Lakers and LeBron James, even saw 40 to 60% decreases in viewership year to year. Huge, massive fall-offs for nearly every major sport, except NASCAR in 2020. Remember, that was kind of the crowning achievement of NASCAR last year, is that despite the pandemic hindering nearly every other sports audience, NASCAR's viewership remained mostly flat through most of 2020. So with that in mind, and with all the additional momentum behind NASCAR coming into 2021, Chase Elliott, the defending champion, Bubba Wallace, Michael Jordan's new team, Pitbull with a new team, new tracks, Kyle Larson back and better than ever. With all that momentum, I think NASCAR was optimistic that ratings would at least continue to be consistent from last season, but so far 5 races into this year and every single Cup Series race has been slightly down, or in the case of the Daytona 500, which of course was altered by rain, significantly down from their counterparts a year ago. That's certainly not a good look, but again, if we look beyond just those numbers at face value, it's important to note that both the Xfinity and Truck Series have consistently seen viewership increases through the first few weeks of this season. So my theory, at least part of what I think is contributing to that, is the effect that Jimmie Johnson leaving the sport has had. 7-time champion, super popular driver, him walking away from NASCAR at the end of 2020, I'm sure at least in a small way is going to affect the Cup Series TV ratings. There are some Jimmie Johnson fans that may not tune in as consistently. In fact, on my tweet today, I saw a couple Jimmie Johnson fans basically say as much. But I think the effects of that are that some of those Jimmie Johnson fans are now more inclined to tune into Trucks and Xfinity because they want to watch these young drivers develop and maybe latch on and find a new favorite driver to root for the entirety of their career. And let's be honest, the Xfinity and the Truck Series have not been without drama to start this year. So again, if we just look at these numbers at face value, Cup Series ratings have been slightly down to start this year, but both Xfinity and Trucks have been slightly up more often than not. So overall, I'd say it's been a net negative because you want the Cup Series viewership to be the one that holds the strongest. That's your flagship, but not a terrible. I'm not going to pretend it's as bad as the 2018 ratings drop off after 2017 when, Dale Jr., Danica Patrick, Matt Kenseth for the first time, retired. 2018 to 2017, that drop was a bit steeper and a bit more concerning, but so I'm not going to say 2021 versus 2020 is in that same realm, but I want to look past that basic TV number. A source within NASCAR, and yes, this is within NASCAR, so take it with some grain of salt. Sure, there's some PR at play here, but this is a guy that I've talked to many times that I trust. He informed me that Fox's audience share was actually up 3% for this year's Phoenix race compared to last year's Phoenix race. Audience share is a metric that refers to the percentage of TVs that are in use at the time that are tuned into a specific channel. So not out of all households in the country, out of which households are actually watching TV during 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and out of that group, what percentage are tuned into NASCAR on Fox. And apparently that number was up 3%. That percentage at least was up 3% this year compared to last year. And according to this source I have, again with NASCAR, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm not foolish. I understand where this source is coming from. Apparently their audience share percentage has been slightly up for multiple races this season. So according to him, at least, NASCAR is not particularly worried about these TV ratings, but again, that is coming from someone who works within NASCAR, so I'm not blinded by the inherent bias that may exist. But what that audience share statistic implies is that, just broadly speaking, in the United States, people are not watching TV as much this year as they were last year or in years past. That's not shocking. You know, people are cutting the cord, getting rid of cable in favor of Netflix and other streaming services. And that's consistent with data that was prevalent through all of 2020. I did some research. There was a Forbes article that was posted at the end of 2020 in December that said, over the course of 2020, streaming viewership, like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, I don't know if YouTube's probably not counting that, but maybe it is. Streaming viewership was up 74% in 2020 compared to 2019, largely a result of a pandemic that trapped people in their homes for long periods of times, caused many people to start working from home, which meant their day-to-day schedule was a bit more flexible. They weren't driving into the office 9 to 5, unable to watch TV. No, they could watch some TV on their lunch break, sit on their couch because they're working from home. I mean, viewership habits changed. People became more flexible with their schedules, so as a result, standard traditional TV viewership decreased and viewership of streaming websites and services went up dramatically. There's a quote in that Forbes article from a guy named Dennis Denninger, a sports communication professor at Syracuse, and here's what he said: "Sports with their scheduled games are rigidly timed. In other words, they offer the opposite of flexibility. In the pre-pandemic era, when people were living more on schedules, watching a game in the evening became a part of your schedule. Now, if you have a big flexible schedule, your viewing patterns have changed tremendously." There certainly is some truth to that. Now, NASCAR is not typically a weeknight sport. It's usually a Sunday afternoon weekend sport, so that's a little bit different, but I think it's safe to say viewership habits all 7 days of the week changed last year and are still a bit different as we start 2021. As things begin to return to normal, fingers crossed, it still is not the same as it was in like 2019, 2018 beforehand. So in conclusion, I don't like talking about TV ratings, unless there's like a huge jump, like Darlington last year when they got like 6.5 million viewers and it was the first sport back after the shutdown and everything. Like, when the numbers are drastically different year to year, then I think the ratings really do mean something. But when the ratings are always right around here, yes, consistently for the last 20, 15 years or so, NASCAR has been declining in viewership, but year to year it's always pretty close. The last few years have been fairly consistent. I don't like scrutinizing TV ratings week after week after week, which is why I have not talked about them much this season, aside from the Daytona 500, which I think is another contributing factor to the slightly lower ratings this year. The fact that the first race of the season, the big ratings winner for NASCAR that draws in the most casual viewers, the most viewed sport on the schedule, when it got rained out and was forced to run late at night and became the least viewed Daytona 500 in modern history, that was a killer, a crusher to the beginning of this season's TV ratings, broadly speaking, because all those casual fans that would usually have watched the Daytona 500 and probably enjoyed it and then maybe have tuned in the next few weeks, they didn't get to see the Daytona 500 more than likely, at least that's what the data suggests, and so they didn't tune into the road course or Homestead or Vegas or Phoenix. They just, they kind of forgot about NASCAR after that first race got rained out. I think that's also a very plausible conclusion to draw, but again, the ratings, this number for Phoenix, not awful, not great, not awful. I'm not going to dwell on it much more than that. I've given you guys some added behind the scenes data. I don't like talking about something when there's no obvious, solution or suggestion that could be made. I don't know what NASCAR could be doing differently right now to change the way viewership has looked to start this season. It feels like it's kind of out of their control. It has a lot more to do with just changing viewership habits across the nation, across the world in general, than it does anything else. And of course, Mother Nature at Daytona can't really control that. Because again, almost everything else besides the rain out in the Daytona 500, which I guess also happened last year, and Jimmy Johnson retiring, nearly everything else coming into the start of this year is consistent from last season, where ratings stayed flat throughout the year. So other than viewership habits, just broadly speaking, continuing to change, the Jimmy Johnson effect perhaps, the Daytona effect perhaps, I just don't think there's much else NASCAR could have done differently to start this season to avoid these mediocre ratings numbers to start the season. So that's why I'm not going to dwell on it any more than I have, because there's just, as of now, I don't know that there's anything obvious that could be done to drastically change them. I feel like more people are talking about NASCAR this year than ever before. I've had this conversation with friends of mine, with family members who don't watch NASCAR usually, who said, oh yeah, I've seen NASCAR everywhere these days. I see people talking about it all the time. You know, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. So sure, this is just anecdotal. This is just my day-to-day, firsthand experiences. It's going to be different than all of your experiences, but at least from my perspective, I feel like NASCAR has slightly infected the mainstream again. Not to the same extent they had 15, 20 years ago, but a little bit. More people are talking about NASCAR. NASCAR, I think, has a more positive image, broadly speaking, than it did a few years back, and I think that's a good thing. Hopefully that starts to translate into nice, pretty, round, good TV numbers, but again, there's always more to them than meets the eye. Anyway, let's talk about something else controversial. I know we couldn't go a week, it feels like, without talking about door number placements. Another Stern bomb. It feels like every month he puts out a tweet like this, and it gets the NASCAR Twitter world, the NASCAR Reddit world, the NASCAR YouTube world super, super heated. Here is what Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal reported yesterday. NASCAR and teams are continuing to analyze the prospective idea of moving car numbers from the center of the door as soon as next season. They're looking into where the number would be best placed to help sponsor value and how any move would affect team value. Yes, we did a whole video on this. I don't remember how long ago. I think it was during the off season when this report first seemed to be surfacing. One notable difference between reports from a few months ago and this report yesterday is a few months ago it sounded like a sure done deal that they were going to slide the numbers back, like towards the rear wheel well. Try saying that 5 times fast. Rear wheel. Wow. Now, this most recent report from Adam Stern, who's been on top of this whole rumor, this whole story since the beginning, makes it sound like NASCAR is not entirely sure yet. They're not fully decided where they're going to move the number. Maybe they'll slide it forward. Maybe they'll only slide it a little bit back. Maybe, oh gosh, maybe they'll put it on the quarter panel. Oh no. Just put the number on the hood. I don't know. At this point, I give up. Of course, as expected, NASCAR fans have been very vocal about this rumor for like the 5th time in a row now. Most fans seem to hate the idea of changing something that in their eyes is not broke. Why try to fix it? Other fans seem to not care and say, hey, if the teams really want it, if they think it'll help sell sponsorship or keep sponsors around, even in the short term, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm somewhere in the middle. I prefer, in my perfect world, I like the door numbers centered, right there, as they have been for decades. But honestly, my only stipulation is that the door number stays large. I don't care how they slide it, as long as it's still very large, very nearly as large as it is now and prevalent. And as long as they don't slide it over to where it gets warped by the fender or the wheel well, as long as the number doesn't get warped and as long as it's big, I'm fine. I'm fine with it, honestly. If they want to slide it back or forward a little bit, that's fine. Just make sure the number is not distorted in any way. Make sure the number is still large, because in this day and age where teams and drivers change paint schemes and colors almost every week, the number needs to be recognizable. That's all I ask. I don't want to see it small on the quarter panel. I don't want it to be in the rear window like a sports car or something. Like, heck no, do not do that. Make sure the number is still big. Make sure it's not warped and distorted. I'm fine. If they want to slide it back, I'm fine. I did my whole video a couple months back talking about how, NASCAR and the teams need to focus their energy elsewhere, because just a little extra space on the door is not what's going to sell new sponsorship consistently, I don't believe. So I'm not going to get into all that again, but if, hey, they can sell a little extra space, make a little extra cash from willing sponsors with this added space, who am I to stop them? Who am I to tell them how to run their business? At the end of the day, it's merely a cosmetic change, and as long, again, as the number is still large and not warped, not completely distorted, it's not that dramatic of a cosmetic change in my opinion, and I think it'll give designers a really cool opportunity to design some paint schemes that we have not seen in NASCAR maybe ever. Completely different styles. They hopefully could do some pretty cool things with this. But I'm sure y'all in the comments will have a very civilized debate on this topic. Let me know what you guys think about the possibility of door numbers being moved around. Let me know. Let me know what you think about TV ratings. I hope you heard what I had to say about some of those added numbers and details. Maybe that provides some important context, but again, TV ratings are just so hard to really judge at face value like this, so we'll see what happens. You want the numbers to be higher, but it's hard to take them that seriously or that specifically at this point. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day, quite nearly on this channel. Talk news, predictions, rumors like we did today, and much more. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. My all-new P.O. Box address is also available down in the description. If you want to send me something, we're going to start showing off some things y'all send me in upcoming episodes, so stay tuned for that. I appreciate you all taking advantage of that. That's all I've got. I'll see y'all in the next episode.